It will then put out 10 times more chocolate.
I think by now you figured out that I really like food because I talk about food a lot. Last night we talked about food and how to produce it and why Kenya is still food insecure. So this morning we talk about the safety of the food that you eat. And earlier on I'd mentioned I've got a panel of experts to discuss this matter further. And right next to me in studio here I have Brenda Obura, who is the head of food safety in the Ministry of Health. Now Brenda also heads the food safety division at the Ministry of Health, and she's a public health specialist with a lot of experience, at least 15 years experience in matters of food safety, which means she's the perfect person to have this conversation with us on food safety. And then we have Henning Nygaard from the Royal Danish Embassy. Henning is a public-private business development specialist, but with a strong specialization with food and agriculture. So his expertise will add into this conversation with his expertise in food and agriculture, and also maybe he'll be able to tell us a little bit of what Kenya can pick from the Royal Danish Embassy, what lessons we can pick, and the best practices that we can adapt here in Kenya. And then we also have Sarah Ndegwa, who's a senior officer of regulation and compliance from the Horticultural Crops Directorate under the Agriculture and Food Authority in the Ministry of Agriculture. Sarah's expertise, of course, is about horticulture, and Kenya has had a lot of challenges with horticulture export, especially to the EU, challenges on the minimum residue of pesticides. Some products have been rejected in the past. And so she will tell us how that has gone so far and what lessons we picked from there and how we have improved on that. And joining us virtually is Dr. Charles Ochodo, who is the Deputy Director of Veterinary Services under the Department of Veterinary Services in the Ministry of Agriculture. Dr. Chodo, of course, expertise with livestock, and livestock is the livestock aspect of food is one bit that is not always discussed enough, even though the things that you feed your livestock and the things that you inject into your livestock has an overall impact on your health as a human being, because if you didn't do it the right way, definitely it will affect you. So Charles will be telling us about that. And of course the regulator, the Kenya Bureau of Standards. And we have John Kabue, who's a food quality assurance officer in the Kenya Bureau of Standards. He will tell us about enforcement of food safety and why Kenya seems not to be getting it right, and why Kenyans think that KEBS plays more of a reactionary role. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, we're here is to talk about the 10 principles of food safety. First, I'd like to start with the Ministry of Health. Brenda, from your perspective as the Ministry of Health, where are we at in terms of food safety?
Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you for having me this morning. Morning viewers, when you talk of food safety in this country, let's look at the statistics of the foodborne diseases. In our country here, we are talking of 70% of all diarrheal diseases are due to foodborne diseases. Mm-hmm. So that tells you where we are as a country. Mm-hmm. We still have a long way to work into improving our food, the production, the preparation, the handling, and all that. So we still have a long way to go. Just the statistic of 70% of diarrheal diseases is an indicator that we are not doing so well.
Yes. And these are diseases like cholera, the kinds of cholera?
Yes, because you know, when you talk of diarrheal diseases, we put them as a blanket. I've not really narrowed down and said this diarrhea is from ABC. So we look at it from that angle. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'd like to bring in Sarah here. Sarah, from the horticulture perspective, you know, horticulture production is very labor intensive with pesticides, pest control, and all that. How does horticulture fit into the food safety conversation?
Well, horticulture is a very vibrant subsector of the agriculture industry, and it employs quite a big number of people in the country, especially the rural areas. It creates employment in as much also as it is a source of food for the agriculture being the backbone of the country. And the issue, especially for the export market, now that we have had issues of, because people want to sell more, and because also of climate change, incidences of pests and diseases also at risk. So farmers are have been obliged to use maybe more pesticide, and at the end of the day, their food is left with pesticide residues. And this has been a threat, especially to the markets where they test before they can offload to their shelves, especially in the European Union. In Kenya, we are not yet there. We are not yet having, and we are looking forward to where we can also take care of what we eat. We can check and ensure that what we are not eating the pesticides that we are trying to use to fight off the pests and diseases. So we are working as a using a multi-sectoral approach, where all the stakeholders are sitting on a round table to see how we can have volumes in the market, but at the same time it's safe and nutritious food, so that we can continue with the economic growth that agriculture contributes to the country.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to bring in Henning here. Now, Henning, from your expertise, you know, Kenya's food system is largely informal. A lot of the food that we produce, a lot of the food we consume is largely informal. How can we better take control of this?
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity to share some of our work with the Kenyan government. We started this work back in 2016, and I really appreciate the collaboration we have had with the Kenyan authorities. As everybody know, we have in Kenya quite many authorities to regulate this area of food. I think we counted our partners to be 12, and we have worked for a long time to coordinate and facilitate this coordination between authorities in a multi-annual national control plan that I'm sure the chairman, which is here, Mr. Dr. Ochodo, can also tell a little more about. It has had some very important consequences, among those the 10 principles of inspection that we are mentioning we are highlighting today. I would say now you're talking about the informal sector. Normally we will say informal or not informal. Large or small companies, large or big farmers, they have to comply to the same type of regulation. Yes. They have the regulation and the guidelines for companies and food business operators in Kenya has to be the same. So large or small, the same approach. But of course, it has to be risk-based, so the approach to a small street vendor or a small farmer has to be different in its approach than a big one, because big producers affect many more people, and there can be a higher risk, and the requirements for those companies to comply to the law has to be more strict, of course. And I would say that the big turnaround in this regulation of food in Kenya has actually, in a nutshell, been to move from controlling food end product to controlling food business operators. And that's the whole backbone of the coordination work and also the new principles for the inspectors. Instead of controlling small lots here and there of what the food contain, and we don't know actually where it comes from, we have to go to the food business operator, and that can be the farmer or the bigger producer, and ask how they get their food and how they ensure that food is safe.
So traceability, that's, you're not talking about an aspect of traceability there.
Excuse me?
You're now talking about traceability when you talk about the food business operator. It's traceability.
Yeah, not only traceability. Of course, it's a part of it. You need to know where you get your food or your input to your production. If you're a farmer, you need to know, as HED is talking about, you need to know where you get your pesticide if you're using pesticides, and the content of it, and how you operate it, how you use it in the field, how much, and so on. So that's a traceability. But I was more talking about the actual control measures that Kenyan authorities are going to carry out in the future. And the revolution here is to put much more emphasis on the food business operator, the company in the whole chain, to take that responsibility and document how they comply with the law and the food safety regulations here. I think there has been a tendency to take that responsibility away from the companies, from authorities, and that's the whole change. It has to be preventive, and the only ones that actually know how to prevent unsafe food, it is the operators. It is the one that carry the food, that produce the food, that sell the food. And that's extremely important for Kenya, and our facilitation here has followed the Danish model and the European model for how to control food. And I think there has been a really important buy-in from our partners here.
Yes. We'll circle back to, you mentioned the model, the Danish model. We will circle back to that as we talk further about these food business operators. Let's bring in Dr. Chodo here. Dr. Chodo, as a Department of Veterinary Services, you're more or less a regulator as well. But yet we've had challenges with meats, especially. We've seen the media do stories about the kind of chemicals that are injected into meats in supermarkets in order to keep it fresh, or farmers just going to a vet to buy medicine without having a vet actually examine the animal, and then the animal, or maybe an animal dying and the farmer just slaughtering and eating that meat. What is the status of food safety regulation in the meat business?
Thank you, Zainab. And thank you for inviting me to the food safety dialogue. First of all, I want to indicate that what Brenda has said in terms of 70% of the diarrheal diseases that we experience as a country, that is the baseline for us. And as we start the food safety dialogue, that is where we are starting from. So, as players in the regulation of food safety in the country, our aim is to reduce that statistic from the 70% that the Ministry of Health has reported to maybe 30, 20, 10%. And that will be a measure of our success in the control of food safety. Now, coming to meat safety control, that starts from very far from the farm, where the animals are produced, and as you have indicated, that is the role of the farmer. But as the farmer does that, as the people involved in the regulation, not only the Directorate of Veterinary Services, we also have the Directorate of Livestock Production, we have the Pest Control Board, we have KEFIS, even KEBS comes in, even public health comes in at some level, because you must remember, before we have the meat, the animal must exist, and the animal needs feed. And a number of these organizations are also involved with feed control. So there is the need to work together to ensure that the inputs that go into the animal are safe. And one important input is feeds. The other one, of course, is the medicines and, of course, the environment of the animal. So from there, we expect a clean animal produced by the farmer, and that animal must then be transported in a manner that has been prescribed. We have special lorries and carriages for transporting animals so that they don't get hurt. if they get bruises during transport, then that will be a place for bacteria to multiply, and that will get into the meat. Then from there, of course, we go to the slaughterhouses, and that is the processing facility, and we have got a whole range of applications there. We expect the people involved in slaughter to apply hygiene control measures, and they know this because these are the things we discuss with them even before they get approval to slaughter. So they must supply what we call good manufacturing practices, what we call HACCP, or hazard analysis and critical control points, because there are many hazards there. And chief among them is the water that is used. The water must be clean. It must be free from chemicals. It must be free from bacteria and other microorganisms. The whole environment of slaughter must be clean. Then from there, the meat is carried to the butcheries, the supermarkets, the hotels, and other outlets where it is retailed. So the carriage, again, the vehicle must be prescribed, and is a special vehicle, and it should only be used for carrying meat. Then the containers, the boxes that you see, those white boxes that have got red lettering, must also be hygienic. And of course, then the meat ends at the butchery. Yes. So it's at the butchery where we have problems in the country. Because as you can see, most of our meat is actually sold in form of carcasses, except in the supermarkets where we have meat cuts. So the problem with carcasses is that they hang out there, and meat is a good media for multiplication of bacteria, and the temperatures are hot. We are in the tropics, so immediately the meat leaves the slaughterhouses, the bacteria starts multiplying as it hangs in the butchery for days. Then we have a huge bacterial load. That makes our food unsafe. Yes. But we are working together with the Ministry of Health and other people involved in the control of food safety in the country, including NEMA, to turn around this. And we are in touch with the food business operators at that level, the butchers, to try and improve their handling of meat. Yes. And soon enough, we shall move from displaying whole carcasses in butcheries to having cuts of meat, which can then be put under some cold storage. So when you go there, you just see whatever you want in some kind of glass cold storage, as you see in the supermarkets. And that is what is given to you. You don't have to keep on pointing. So far, we have tried to reach quite a number of the players in this area, the butchers, through the county food safety committees that we have formed. As you know, food safety is largely a devolved function. At the national government, we are mainly concerned with the regulations and the standards and of course, the laws and policies in food safety. Yes. But most of it is done at the county. So at the county, we have worked with other organizations, Agrife, the Danish government that Henning is representing here, to set up what we call county food safety committees. And these committees are now reaching to slaughterhouses, they are reaching to farmers because they are the people on the ground. They are reaching to transporters of animals and meat, and in that manner, we are trying to ascertain or ensure safety of the meat from the farm to the fork. Yes. Because we cannot just look at the supermarkets and say they are injecting chemicals and so on. These chemicals, even before the supermarket, there are other chemicals that will come in through control of pests, through control of diseases, through the feed, like aflatoxins and so on. So this must be controlled. But now coming to the supermarkets, I think we are increasing vigilance. I think the Ministry of Health and KEBS are doing that, and they'll be doing random tests in the supermarkets to ensure that the meat that is sold there is not preserved using chemicals that may be detrimental to the people's health.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Chodo. Thank you, Dr. Chodo. Now, I'd like to bring in here KEBS. Kabue, KEBS has often been accused of being reactionary. Like, for example, you'd wait for a story to break in the media about the media having tested something and finding it not satisfactory, and then you react by pulling it off the shelves. Recently, we saw you pulling a number of maize meal brands off the shelves due to food safety concerns, and you were attacked by the millers because of that. Do you think that's a correct perception of you?
Thank you, Zainab, for having me, and good morning, viewers. I want to really bring to the attention, especially of the public, that we have internal measures that are put in place in order for us to assure or to ensure that the food that is either manufactured or in the market is safe. And we are not reactionary. Possibly, what we can say, we put in systems. And one of the things that I want maybe the general public to understand is, one, we have developed standards, because that is the first place you start in. Set in specification that will be able to guide whether they are manufacturers or people that are engaged in packing. And these standards will provide the minimum requirement for product safety. And these standards are normally gazetted and they are available in our websites. The manufacturer can go in, check what standard it is, and then can seek to comply with it. So basically, that is an infrastructure that we have put in place so that the manufacturer there can know what needs to be done. The other thing that we are doing, apart from that, is that we go now systematically based on risk approach, where we carry out inspections that are either in the factory, at the point of entry, or in the market. And this is something that is happening continuously, such that we do not wait for news to break for us to take action. Possibly this may have been coincident, whereby sometimes you hear something has happened and KEBS has moved in, but initially we also have data concerning it. The other thing that I want to bring to attention is, one or the other thing that we also want to do is to make sure that manufacturers or the FBOs, they understand their responsibility. And this we have continued to do through continuous engagement. We now have what we call a National Quality Institute. And this institute, what they are doing is disseminating information about requirements, standards, and capacity building on issues like good manufacturing practice. These are preventive measures that we have put in place so that industry or manufacturers can have better systems so that they can produce safe food. Of course, after putting all that, we must also go out and enforce and verify and monitor. Has everything been done as specified, maybe in the different regulation? And this is maybe where people will see that KEBS has taken action. But basically, this is when we go to verify and enforce. But already we have put other systems in place to guide the industry so that they can produce safe food. So we are not actually reactionary, but I think we are very, very proactive, I can say, in order to ensure that the product that is in the market is safe for use by the consumer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to return to Brenda. Something that Henning mentioned about food business operators, and and also what Charles said about working together with you to bring down the number of foodborne diseases in the country, number of cases of foodborne diseases in the country. Why has it been so difficult to regulate this over the years?
Well, one thing that I may bring maybe to your attention is over the years, each institution has been working in a silo. You find the Ministry of Agriculture, the veterinary, the crops, everybody is working their own silo. The Ministry of Health is doing their own thing. If we go back to history, you'll find that there's a time we had issues about aflatoxin in maize. KEBS had their results. Ministry of Health had its own results. Agriculture, AFA had their own results. So that shows you that we had issues of coordination, and the gaps are there, that we are not communicating to each other.
Yes.
And of course, when you're not communicating to each other, and yet all of you are dealing with the same kind of aspect, then there's always a problem.
A problem, yes.
Yes. So what we've been doing as a Ministry of Health, and together with the Ministry of Agriculture, we came up together, of course with support from our partners, the Danish government being among them. And we've now come up with a food safety control coordination bill.
Food safety coordination control bill.
Yes.
That all these people have contributed to.
Yes, everybody has, because anybody who has a stake in food safety has contributed into it. And we realized that we had a gap in the space of coordination.
Yes.
Not really, we have all the laws. Talk of CAP 242, CAP of, that is the Public Health Act. Talk of the CAP 254, that is the Food, Drugs and Chemical Substances Act. Talk of the Meat Control Act, that is the CAP 356, that is under the Veterinary Department. We have enough laws in this country. What we've been lacking is the coordination. And I like what Dr. Chodo said, that already we are setting up county food safety control committees, which are mirroring the National Food Safety Control Committee. And in these committees, we find that anybody who has a stake, right from production, that's from the farm to fork, is having an input in it. So I think with that coming into place, we'll be able to address quite a number of issues, especially when it comes to, even when we get rapid alerts from out of the country, it's easier to communicate with each other. If you have an issue even within an institution and you need the support of your sister institution, we have that in place. And also we have in place now also, we are reviewing our food policy document. We had one of 2013, and the 2013 one didn't have when it came into place, we had not incorporated the county system. So with the
yes, that was before the counties.
Yeah, it came. Okay, we started using it in 2009. The constitution came into play in 2010. So meaning when we developed it, the issues about county were not in existing. So we are reviewing that document. Also, we've already taken it to the counties, all the 47 counties across the country, and we've already gotten inputs, especially from the regulators in the different ministries and agencies. And of course, now we are engaging. We are at the level now we want to take it for public review, and also we also have at some point the national stakeholder participation, so that to really have everything sorted. And I think with that direction, we'll be able to have a shift of how food safety is handled in this country.
You mentioned the coordination bill that sorry, that you're working on.
Yes.
Will you be requiring people to register, these food business operators? Will you be requiring them to be registered so that you know who they are and where they are?
Already food business operators register. When they go in their various counties, remember food safety, food inspection is a devolved function. So in each of our counties across the country, these people receive food business licenses, meaning they're already getting registered. If you go to like AFA, HCD, they register all they register the farmers, they also register distributors and all those. So we have all those already in place. What we are talking about in this coordination bit is basically how to coordinate
communication between yourselves.
Communication amongst ourselves. We are even actually thinking of having a body or a body that will have somebody at the top who will be calling us together once in a while to have meetings, or if there's that person would more of be like a watchman or a watchdog. If a certain ministry is not doing what it's supposed to do, then it will be the responsibility of the controller, whom we are referring in the document, the controller, to get in touch with that particular ministry to say, hey, if it's a Kenya Bureau, we are having this kind of problem, and you people, you seem not to be doing your work. What's not happening? He will be probing the various ministries to be able to do what
act faster.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Now, Sarah, from the horticulture perspective, what Brenda has talked about, registering people within the horticulture industry, that sounds very formal. But what about the mama mboga we'll find outside my gate if I'm going to buy groceries from them? They've got fruits, they've got mboga, and I'm going to buy from them. How are you bringing in these people into this food safety conversation and under regulation properly?
Okay, for the mama mboga and the local market, we haven't been very active involved, but the approach we'd like to adopt is to raise awareness amongst the consumers, because if the consumer is not adequately informed about the food they eat, then they are the same people we see buying food from the roadside or from the street as they are walking. But if the consumer, every Kenyan, is made aware of the importance of having their food grown well, and then carried well, transported well, and also displayed well, not on the street or not on the roadside, as we have seen in our Kenyan practice. Along the roads, there's a lot of roadside kiosks. If the consumers were adequately prepared and they are well informed, they will be able now to actually, even without a lot of lobbying, going to get their own food in the right places. But if you are on the roadside and you are not getting markets because the consumer demands that you cover their food or you display it in a way that it's attractive and it's away from dust and everything else. So slowly the sector of roadside and mama bogas will streamline, and they will, because they are entrepreneurs and they are looking to
make money,
to make sales. Yes.
Yes. So perhaps if I could ask you, as a consumer, when I go to this kibanda for mama boga, what are the first things that I need to look out for? Maybe the initial red flags that would tell me this food is not safe for me to buy.
Well, I don't want to prescribe, but because most of the Kenyans buy the attractive looking,
the bigger the leaves, the better.
And the bigger leaves and the bigger tomatoes. But it's also worrying because some of the tomatoes we are eating have even specks of residues or physical. You can see physical chemical residues on the tomatoes. And I don't know, we have not reached the age of knowing that is actually chemical and could harm you, because people just buy. I've not seen people rejecting tomatoes because it has those maybe copper, green copper, or some blue copper residues, physical residues. In some places where people are a bit aware, I see the mama bogas wiping. Keep wiping, they wipe a little.
Yes.
In supermarkets, I think they wash because you can't see that in the supermarket. But we see that like sukuma wiki and the spinach, the one with a little bit of holes could be safer, because maybe the one that is very doesn't have even a speck or even an insect bite that may have been sprayed a lot. But the best way is not to speculate. The best way is to come up with a strategy that we train the farmers. I've been working with farmers for many years, and it is difficult because what we have seen, it's not that they spray because they don't know. They have their own kitchen gardens where they don't spray a lot, or it's organic, and they have this commercial portion that is for bringing to the people who are staying in the cities. So we need to create a lot of awareness. We need to harmonize so that we also have take personal responsibility, so that what you cannot eat, do not give it to your neighbor. Because the people who buy, sometimes they do not know. And also sometimes people say we cannot afford to really go for safe food, or because maybe organic food is a bit expensive. But we forget that medical bills, when you get unwell, medical bills are higher than anything else, because if you we have studies now that are relating the food that we are eating because of the heavy metals and pesticide residues. Cancer cases have been, there's some studies that are actually linking that could be as a result of what we are eating.
Yes.
So,
Sarah, we need to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, I'd like to hear from you. You know, a lot of these fruits, they're sprayed with wax in order to make them look more appealing or to appear to be fresher. And maybe you can tell us there, and also from the Ministry of Health, you tell us if that is something, if it's a practice that is safe, and how that will affect the consumers if they eat. We'll be right back after this short break.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority on or before November 1st, 2021. It is now easier to report and surrender. Visit www.holders.ufaa.go.ke and get started. Beat the November 1st, 2021 deadline. It's your turn. Pass the baton. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Did you know that Mudokinjo Paints and Cement delivers cement countrywide for free? The hardware deals with paints, cement, waterproofing and decorating sundries. Mudokinjo has 17 branches across the country. Mudokinjo delivers reliable, accessible and affordable building materials that are used within all residential houses, factories, office and public buildings for the purpose of decoration and protection.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Welcome back, and we're glad that you're still with us. Now, before we went on to the break, we were talking about the informal food systems and how you as a consumer, your life may be at risk from what you're buying at your local grocery store, and how you can better protect yourself when you're buying this food. But before we come back, I'd like to throw it back to the Kenya Bureau of Standards to talk to us about the principles of food safety and what it is, these 10 principles that they're trying to put forward. What are they about, really, John?
Thank you, Zainab. One of the things I want to bring to attention is the traditionally regulators. We have been looking at manufacturers or food business operators. Sometimes we've been looking at them as though they may not be knowing what they are supposed to do. That has been a misconception about many inspectors in the past. But also over the years, we have discovered that manufacturers, they have expertise, the relevant expertise, and if guided well, they are able and they are willing to manufacture safe and quality food. So one of the biggest guiding principles among the 10 principles of inspection, what we are trying to do is to make sure that we allow the manufacturers or the FBOs to be the ones that are putting in control measures. They are the ones who are supposed to implement standards. Because as I said, we have developed a number or several food safety standards. Some of them we call them code of hygienic practice to be used to guide the manufacturing in the food industry. We have code of practices in the food and drink manufacturing industry. And we have relevant product standards. If you are making bread, there is a Kenya standard for bread. So what we are doing is that we are making sure that we make this manufacturer know this standard is in place, exists. And so what we require of these manufacturers of the FBOs is to make sure they get that Kenya standard, they study the standard, and then they put in control measures that are supposed to ensure that the product that will come at the end is a product that is safe. So what are we saying? It is the responsibility of manufacturing safe food is squarely on the FBO, the food business operators or the manufacturers. What we are coming to do as regulators, we are coming in to verify the controls that they have put in place because they already know. What we are trying to do also, we are trying to tell them, we are not coming to prescribe what controls you are supposed to put in place. It is you to demonstrate, to tell us, yes, I am not supposed to, I understand the standard for sifted maize meal has given the levels of aflatoxin. And it says the aflatoxin should not be more than 10 parts per billion. That is what the regulations say, or the Kenya standard. So it is the manufacturer now to put in controls so that they can demonstrate that the sifted maize meal that they are manufacturing does not meet those prescribed requirements. And how can they do it? They are supposed to either to put in control in terms of the raw material, because you say they say in the computer science that garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
So if you have poor raw materials that have high level of aflatoxin, you cannot be able to remove it downstream. So basically what we are saying, you must know the raw material that you're putting in place. That is one. The other thing that the 10 principles are bringing in place is the issue of value chain, the control or the monitoring of the work of the entire value chain. You cannot wait for the final product to test to see whether it's compliant. There must be controls available at the farm level where this product is manufactured. That is through the application of what we call good agricultural practices at the farm level.
Yes.
Then at the storage, you remember these farmers, or they are aggregating their products and they are putting it somewhere, either in their home or we have aggregators.
Yes.
These aggregators must observe what we are calling good storage practices and hygiene practices at the aggregation level. Then at the manufacturing level, what these principles are trying to put in is to bring understanding that now as you as a manufacturer, you need to verify the materials that you are receiving. Are they going to give you the end product that is prescribed in the standard? And thereafter, you're supposed to make sure that you monitor throughout your production system. And what we are also emphasizing on in this principle is that now when we come to carry out inspection, we are going to look at the entire system, not only the final product. We are going to look, how do you store your product based on the requirement that are stipulated in the Code of Hygiene Practices. We're also asking you, what kind of trainings have you been able to take your staff through, especially the principal people that are in charge of controls or food safety controls? What kind of trainings have you put in place? Yes. And then the documentation, the record there is. What is the monitoring that you're doing continually on a daily basis, and the records that you have maintained? So we are looking at verifying those records, and thereafter we are drawing a sample for testing. And this sample, we are drawing it at the point of production so that we can be able to see through the measures that the industry has put in place.
Yes, so you have to have the paperwork for your food.
So basically that is the approach, and the responsibility now is on the FBOs. The inspectors have been instructed that what they're going to do is to verify, and their knowledge is enhanced on verification and enforcement. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Chodo, enforcement is one big challenge for Kenya. Brenda here mentioned that Kenya has more than enough laws, more than enough regulations across all the ministries that deal or have an aspect to do with food safety. There are enough laws, but the challenge is always in enforcement. You'll find, especially now with a lot of government operations being devolved, they will tell you they don't have enough inspectors, they don't have fuel for the vehicle in order to come and inspect. With these principles of food inspection, whose job is it to enforce?
Thank you, Zainab. Enforcement is a big problem for us. And to try and address it, then we have come up with these principles of inspection. And just to take you back a little, why the principles of inspection? The principles of inspection are born out of the fact that we are many players in food safety control, as we have indicated earlier in the discussion. And we operate using different laws, different regimes. We are in different ministries, so we have different administrative setups. But our clients are the same, the food business operators. And when we talk of food business operators, we are referring to food producers. These are the farmers, the pastoralists, the people doing horticulture and so on. We are referring to transporters of food, processors, traders, retailers, and even the street vendors. Anybody handling food at any one time is a food business operator, apart from the consumer. And so we have come up with these principles as a means of improving enforcement. And what the principles then direct us to do is to be able to verify, as John has said, that the food business operator is complying with the regulations that exist in different ministries. So to us, inspection is a key aspect of control. And we actually call it the pillar of control of food safety. And that is one pillar of that we are discussing today, one of the principles that we are discussing today. The other principle that is very important and touches on the food business operators is that they must know the regulations. It's their responsibility really to know the regulations. So we shall go out as regulators to inform them, to educate them, to create awareness, but they must remember, even before we reach there, because the laws are out there, is their responsibility to know these regulations and then comply. So as inspectors, we shall enforce this by verifying compliance, and if somebody is not doing, then we shall apply the other principles that principle that we have, and that is the principle of sanctioning the food business operator. So the sanctions can come in as administrative warnings, they can come in as withdrawal of licenses, where there are serious breaches and people have been hurt. We could even go to court, there'll be recall, and there could be even a destruction of certain food. The other principle that we want the consumers to know, because this dialogue is actually meant for consumers and food business operators, is that as inspectors, we really do not want to react to issues. We want to be preventive, and I think John has stressed that point enough. So we want to get into practices like the ones John has mentioned, the good manufacturing practices, the good agricultural practices at the production level. At the trade level, we want good hygienic practices so that we prevent contamination and any infection or the residues that might get into food. We don't want to be reacting to problems, because by the time we react, the consumers already have it. And then the other principle that has been mentioned by Henning, I think, is that our approach will be risk-based. So in the food chain matrix, you see there are many players and they are of different categories. Some are already doing the right thing, and many are not doing the right thing. And resources, like you say, we have limited inspectors, the vehicles are few and so on. There'll never be enough. We cannot have enough inspectors for everybody. And this is why we are saying food business operators must take responsibility. But even as they do that, we as inspectors, when we do the verification of compliance, we'll want to apply more of our energy to the more risky operators. These are the street vendors. These are the small-scale producers who may not think they are supposed to follow certain rules. And in that chain, we also have certain foods that might be more prone to contamination, things like milk, the vegetables we have talked about, the meat and so on. So we want to focus more on this. And that is what we mean by the risk-based control. We don't want to go out and deal with all the food business operators. As you know, they are in the millions, particularly when you think of the producers. Then the other principle that is also very important, when it comes to a crisis or a problem, Brenda talked about that earlier on, we want to seek the source. What is the source? For example, the aflatoxin that she talked about earlier. Where is this coming from? And the principle then tells us to deal with the problem at the source. So if it is aflatoxin in milk, we know the source is not milk. The source is the animal feed, the maize and the other grains that the animal fed on. So what we do at the time of preparing that feed, that maize or whatever grain that was used to make the feed, how do we ensure that it is prepared in a manner that does not encourage development of aflatoxin? When it comes to residues in meat, for example, drug residues, chemical residues, You'll find them at the slaughterhouse, you'll find them at the supermarket, but at that time you can do very little to, prevent that. So we want to go back to the production and try and manage that problem there. And that is a principle we want the food business operators to be aware of, the consumers, that as regulators in food safety, we shall be seeking the source of the problem. And we want cooperation from the producers, the food business operators at that level.
Yes.
And of course, different regulators will be linking up to ensure that this is happening. But most important, and what Henning and John referred to, the basis of these principles is that the food business operator takes responsibility of the safety of the food that he or she handles.
Yes,
that is a very big the basis of our principles.
Okay, you mentioned there following the source of the food business and the contamination, and farmers have a tendency of, when you're inspecting your maize crop and you find some maize looking like it's been attacked by some pest or it's been attacked by some disease, you cut it down and you give it to your livestock. So maybe we'll get back into that a little bit, Dr. Chodo. But right now I'd like to bring in Henning. Henning, how does Kenya compare to other countries in the world when it comes to enforcement and compliance to food safety in your experience?
Yeah, thank you. As we have heard today, and also the regulators here in this show today also state that there has been a lot of challenges coordinating initiatives and who is regulating what when, and what is the approach actually to the farmer or to the producer of food, or how to store it in the supermarket and so on. So I think Kenya has many more authorities that governs this area compared to, for example, countries in Europe. In Denmark we have one authority, the Danish Veterinary Food Administration, which are a partner with us here with the Kenyan authorities. We have a agricultural agency and a chemical agency in our Danish NEMA. So it's much more simple, and it's a one-way approach to the FBOs that we're talking about today. So it is a travel, and Denmark has been through a number of the same situations with a widespread number of authorities that were governing this area, from central to municipalities and so on. So I think Kenya is definitely on the right track to streamline and coordinate these initiatives. And we hear, as you questioned before about enforcement, that's always the same question I hear from consumers or from the media. We can make a lot of nice laws, but what about enforcement? And I would say, with my knowledge from Europe and from the last 5 years of work with Kenyan authorities, this is not only about writing new laws that are nice on paper. And these principles we are talking about here today, it actually has very hands-on implications for food business operators. They need to know their responsibility, and of course they need a little bit of guidance in this change, as KEBS and DVS is also explaining. Because it is a change. There has been a tendency in Kenya that many companies were leaning back and waiting for the authorities to come and tell them exactly what to do, exactly where to put the tiles on the wall, and so on. And that's not the idea. It's not efficient. I think this new approach, because these principles we are talking about today, they're actually developed for the inspectors. So it is directly compliance. It is an education is going on right now with the assistance from one of our partner organizations, the Micro Enterprise Support Program Trust, and also the Danish SSC program. We are participating also in training, both on sector level, but also generally in the counties for training inspectors on these principles, because the new approach is different when they're out. They are now going to ask for documentation, as John mentioned. Yes. Show me exactly how you ensure the safe food. So instead of just waiting for government authorities to show them, now they have to have systems in place. And that, of course, is different when you talk to the small street vendor, but he still need to know how to clean his knife before he cut the pineapple.
Yes.
And he needs to have access to clean water, and if he's not able to do that, it has to have consequences, as DVS and Charles also mentioned.
Great. Great. Thank you there, Henning. Sarah, before we went on break earlier, I had told you we would talk about wax and if it's safe to spray wax on your food. And one of the viewers has actually responded to me. Dr. Jen Ambuko says that there are safe and food-grade waxes that are recommended for food. Some are edible. We at the University of Nairobi, for example, have promoted the mango wax, which is safe and can extend the shelf life of mango to reduce post-harvest losses. So I guess that responds to the question of wax. But we need to take another quick break. When we come back, Sarah, we'll talk about COVID and food safety. You know, COVID has been cited to be, or rather, the WHO has been investigating the connection between COVID and food safety. So when we come back, we'll talk about how the two are related, especially now with Kenyans becoming obsessively compulsive cleaners and now washing their vegetables with soap, and if that is safe, something that is safe to do. We'll be right back.
Get the best value for your money by subscribing today for Classic Bouquet at only 899 shillings for 30 days to enjoy 64 channels. Classic Bouquet, premium content on Star Times. Subscribe today.
So when I was around 11, 12, I started realizing my breasts zinaanza kutoka. Uko kwa village, when they look at you, you have big breasts and we're young, they start saying umeharibiwa. Even teachers, but I respect teachers so much. Would they ask you uliacha wapi mtoto? I want to use this one girl, one bra campaign to go and reach out to such girls. I tell them, let no one touch you.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority on or before November 1st, 2021. Visit www.holders.ufaa.go.ke and get started.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money, if our business...
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania.
I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuria alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi hivi. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
A place in your heart.
Well, what did he say? He said that he already has police assistance. There, that's them. Don't do this to the children. Leave them out of this. Settle this with us. Please just let them out. We're begging you, please.
Ma'am, the Ledesmas have charged you with attempted murder and kidnapping. What's your official response?
A place in your heart.
All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority on or before November 1st, 2021. Visit www.holders.ufaa.go.ke and get started.
Lucozade. Energy to get through it.
Welcome back. Now, over the last 2 days, we've been reporting about a serial killer who broke out of police custody, Masten Wanjala, who has been on the run, and he broke out of police custody under unclear circumstances and was yet to be rearrested. And now we can report that he has been killed. An irate mob has killed him. He confessed to killing a number of children. Masten Wanjala, he was killed in Bungoma, and Assistant County Commissioner Cornelius Nyaribai has confirmed that he has been killed by an irate mob. We will keep you updated on this story as the day continues. But getting back onto our conversation on food safety, I'd like to bring in Sarah now. Sarah, with COVID-19 and the concerns about COVID having come from food and it being a food safety concern, and now Kenyans and people around the world putting their vegetables in the sink and then putting some detergent or some Omo there, and you wash it thoroughly with soap and water. Is that something we should be doing with food?
No. It's not a good practice, because soap can cause diarrhea. Whatever washing water you should use should be potable water, clean water, and you can use vinegar. Sometimes people use vinegar where there is no access to very large amount of clean water. But whatever you use should be food grade. That's the bottom line. It should be food grade, as Dr. Jane has alluded. It should be food grade, and this brings us to the concern of many people, especially in the urban areas, who do not have access to potable water, clean drinking water. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done by maybe the local governments to ensure that the consumers or people have access to clean water, potable water, water that you can drink, And even when you go to buy your vegetables in the Mama Boga, you should be concerned about how clean or what is the source of the water that Mama Boga is using to wash your vegetables, or even sometimes to sprinkle them so that they look glamorous and attractive. The use of clean water, wash water, is of high concern, and it should actually be taken to the lab. Because you should not just say that the water is clean because it looks clear and all that. You should have an analysis, water analysis from the lab, from an accredited lab, and it's the water that you should use to wash your vegetables, because some you actually wash and eat, you don't cook again. So the water is of, the quality of water is of great concern, and if you wash with soap because maybe you feel that many people have touched it, then at the end of the day you should still rinse it well with wash water that is of potable. That means you can drink it.
So don't wash your vegetables at all with soap and water. That's what you're saying, at all?
With soapy water?
Yes.
No.
How about warm water? Can you use warm water?
It depends on what you're trying to remove. What are you trying to remove? Yes, if you're trying to remove COVID germs, yes. I think then you need to put in measures where the people are using, and the chlorine in the water is sufficient to kill the bug, the chlorinated water, and that's why people say that you can swim, because in the swimming pool there's chlorine and you cannot get COVID there. So the water we normally use, especially the one that is in the urban water companies, it's chlorinated. And if it's safe and potable, then it can kill your bugs as long as you wash and you rinse and you wash again and you rinse, then you're safe. And then once you cook what is cooked, I think then it's going to be safe. But I would like to throw this to the Ministry of Health because I do not have any data on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brenda, she's throwing it back at you.
Yes. So the key thing is we have normally five keys that govern us on how you handle your food at home. So the issue of washing our fruits, our vegetables with chemicals, honestly, we do not recommend.
Yes.
As long as your water is clean, and not just clean, it is safe. That is, it's potable. That is good enough to do that bit of the washing and getting rid of the dirt. Yeah. So I would not recommend. Of course, we know in the supermarkets nowadays, if you go to the vegetable section, you'll find there's some kind of liquid that is sold for washing vegetables.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, for those who can afford, it's a food grade thing. It has already been passed through Kenya Bureau of Standards, and it's by the time it's on the market, then it means it's allowed to be used. But what about the common mwananchi who cannot afford? The person who stays in Kibera, this person who stays wherever, and even getting the potable water is a problem. So we advocate for them to use safe, clean water that is not contaminated. Yeah. To do the
How
cleaning.
about wax? The Dr. Mbuko from University of Nairobi tweeted and said there are food grade wax that's allowed to spray on fruits and vegetables. Are you sure that's what's in the supermarket? That's what is being sprayed on the fruits?
Because when you look at what is in the supermarket, it's written a food grade. It has already been tested, and it also indicates the kind of ingredients that it has. To me, it is safe.
So it's safe to eat it, or do you peel? Do you
no,
peel?
Okay, it's what is in the supermarket? It's a liquid that you put in water.
And then you spray.
Then you just dip in your if it's your vegetable, if it's your fruits, and all that, and then you just eat.
Now, once the fruit has already been sprayed with wax to extend its shelf life, is that fruit safe to eat as it is, or do you need to peel off the waxy skin?
I would request HCD, Afa,
Sarah, Brenda is throwing it back at you. Once the fruit has been sprayed with wax, do you eat it like that, or do you need to peel off the waxy skin?
You have to wash it. You have to wash it. And most of the fruits that are waxed, avocado, mangoes, where most of the time you do not eat the skin, but you need to wash them.
Apples are also sprayed with wax sometimes.
Yeah, you need to wash. You need to wash them. Yeah, because apart from the wax, there are also other things that people have maybe have touched. So you need to wash your fruits thoroughly before you eat them.
With running water, no soap.
Yes, and sometimes, most of the time, if it's you can remove the skin, the better. But things, if it's pesticide that are contaminating the food, then no amount of washing will remove the pesticide residue. Yeah, so we need to work a lot with our farmers so that they can have responsible use of pesticides, so that they don't have residue when the fruit is already harvested.
Yes. Now, John, what is the role of the consumer in this conversation? Because consumers, once there's a problem with food or I bought something and I get sick, I will blame the government. Why did the government allow that food to get to me in the first place? What is my responsibility as a consumer in ensuring the safety of the food that I eat?
Thank you. I think that's a very good question. Does the consumer have a responsibility? And I say yes. One is when I go out to buy a commodity from the market as a consumer, first of all, there are some things that I may need to check to verify on that commodity. One, which is so critical, is like the physical appearance in terms of how does the package look? If it's a packed food, pre-packed food, how does the packaging material look like? If it's torn, if the integrity is poor, then you have all the reason to suspect that the quality and the safety of that commodity is not okay. So you set it aside and you not that. The other thing that you may need to check is maybe the labeling requirement, and especially commodities that are placed on the market, especially the prepackaged food. In this case, they already have, they are supposed to have the date marking. And the date marking here, there will be the production date and there will be expiry date. So that is a very good guide for me to look at. Does the product have both the production date, date of manufacture or date of packing, and the date of expiry? So when I look at that, then I should make a decision in terms of buying. Because if it's not compliant, or if it's expired, or if it's just about to expire, and I'm expecting to put it in my shelf or at home for more than a week, because sometimes we buy for bulk buying so that we can use that food item in my home for a long time, prolonged time, depending on how you're going to use that product. You can look at the shelf life and say, it is only 1 week to expiry. Then what I need to do is to put it aside and not consider it for.
I think we've lost John. John, are you still there? I think we've lost John, but we will come back to him. Dr. Ochodo, we can pick up from where John has left off. Sometimes you buy a product, you've seen those posts on social media. Someone bought something and then when they open it, they say they found bugs in it, or they found some maggots in it, or there are those, what are they called, cobwebs? Cobwebs in it. Do I get redress as a consumer when I find such kind of kind of things in my food? What are the steps I need to take in order to report this? Dr. Chodo. Oh, I'm sorry, we've lost Dr. Chodo as well. Okay. I apologize for that technical hitch. We are working to get both of them, and when we do, we will continue with our conversation. But Brenda, you seem to be, from a Ministry of Health perspective, you seem to have answers about this. Is there any kind of redress that a consumer can get if you find those things in your food?
Yes. First and foremost, maybe for the very recent thing that has happened in the last 2 days, you've heard about this juice, Ceres.
Yes.
The one that is coming from South Africa.
Yes.
When you look at it from that, it's not just, I'm starting the story from far, then to get to where we are. We've realized that it's the manufacturer who sent out the recall.
Yes.
We did not wake up as regulators in our country or any other country. It's a manufacturer who saw that there's an issue with the product, and they sent out an SOS in the various countries through their various contact points. Like for us, we have the InfoSan contact point, where I'm happen to be the secretariat. We have the rapid alert window, where we also get information of any such kind of incident from the EU. So we have that at that level, and when we get that kind of information, we also know how to roll it out to our entire, like for us, all the 47 counties are aware about the Ceres juice and what Kabu was talking about, issues about the manufacturing date, issues about the expiry date, issues about the labeling. Is it in a language that a common mwananchi can understand? We normally have labeling. If you go to the supermarket today, you get a lot of products written in a language that we do not understand. And when you go to our laws, you find that any product that is supposed to be on the market must have a language that we understand as Kenyans. Like for us, we talk of either it's Kiswahili or English.
Yes.
So when a consumer goes to the supermarket and purchases and he has seen all these things, they are okay, and then he goes home and finds that there's a problem. Number one, why are we now talking about these 10 principles? The issues of now traceability are much more clearer.
Yes.
The consumer has a right to go back to where they bought the product. If it's in a supermarket that is registered, or if it's a kiosk that is registered, he will definitely take back the product there and say, I have this issue with this product, I bought it from your shop, this is my receipt. You know, issues of integrity also come in because we've had cases where people purchase and they go add things and then it becomes a long story. By the end of the day, you realize they lied to you. So issues of integrity also come in. So if the supermarket or the retailer also got the products from an authentic way from a good manufacturer, they should be able to report backwards.
Yes.
But at times you find we are not all of us in that space. You find it's that kiosk person who says, sasa mimi nililetewa, I was brought for this thing here. I don't even know mahali litoka. Then it will be now the responsibility again of that consumer to go to the nearest, can I say now the public health office, if it's, because like public health officers I can see without confusion is they are right up to the local area. We have the public health technicians there, we have the public health officers at the sub-locations, the county level and all that. They go to any of those officers and put their case across. Then that's the time now that that public health officer, who is an inspector, will now pick it up from there and be able now to do the tracing to the manufacturer on behalf of the consumer.
Okay, so how often do you get such cases to trace?
Okay, personally, from where I sit, it takes long because we deal mostly with the policy and all that. But from the county level, they have a register where they, and the last one, like the one for Nairobi, the one when I communicated last with them, they had like 10 cases of different commodities having issues.
Great. Henning, how can we better sensitize the consumer in order to make them take more control of the food they eat and not just rely on the government to do it for them?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe allow me to go back to your previous question, if I'm allowed, about the COVID response, because I just want to mention a pilot scheme and initiative that we are taking together with the EU Agri-Fee program and MESP that we work with, actually to work with a number of counters, pilot counters on their wet markets. And when I think it's not it's not only a question of washing vegetables, because at the open markets we have a number of issues that there's a risk for contamination of food, and a lot of people are using the open wet markets, and it's not only vegetables, it's meat, it's also ready-made food that's been made, and very often it is the counties that are maybe even own the areas, and we are discussing a whole new model for how to organize and prevent these issues that could bring diseases like COVID on board in the future. So I think that is a very, very important area to work with in Kenya, because you have so many open markets where there is hygiene risk and other risks. So, but it's very positive that there is ongoing activities on this. Then you ask about the consumer awareness and consumer responsibility. Mainly, I would say this is a huge area, and in countries like my own country, Denmark, we have very strong consumer organizations that inform the public. It is also being supported by the authorities. They have information like Minister of Health, like the veterinary services and so on. They have information about certain products, maybe if they are really dangerous and they have to be removed from the shelves and so on. Of course, we have alerts that go out. But the general education of consumers, it's very often something we leave for consumer organizations to take care of.
Okay.
And they use scientific based information material together with the universities and so on, what to do and what not to do. And in some cases, there's not a precise answer, and it's very difficult and not recommendable that the public authorities move into a blurry area where there's not a clear scientific answer.
Yes.
So I think authorities here in Kenya also, they should stick to their control and regulation mandate, and that's where there is a lot to do. And of course, consumers, when they go to a market, or they go to a small shop, or they go to the supermarket, they should expect that food is safe.
Yes.
You cannot put that responsibility on their shoulders to look into. We have declarations on the food, as also it's mentioned, when it's been produced, when it's getting old, when it has to be taken off the shelves and so on. That's a type of information you as a consumer you can understand, but going into technical issues of aflatoxin and so on, that's not possible. We should not put that on the shoulders of consumers.
Okay.
We have to prevent that when we go back the value chain to the source, to the farmer, to the transporter. When you put maize on stock and molds occur, of course you don't put it on the shelf. And that is where the inspector comes in, and he asks the right questions to the storage manager, so he knows exactly how he can document that there's no mold in the maize, and it never reaches the consumer.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I need to remind you of the breaking news today. The self-confessed child serial killer Masten Wanjala has been killed in his home county of Bungoma. That's you'll see the tag coming to your screen shortly. He has been killed, and the Assistant County Commissioner of Bungoma, Cornelius Nyaribai, has confirmed Masten's death. Masten broke out of police custody about 2 days ago when he was due for arraignment in court to answer to murder charges, and he broke out under unclear circumstances during a power cut, and police were yet to rearrest him or to establish his whereabouts after he broke out. And now the Assistant County Commissioner of Bungoma County is confirming that he has been killed. We are following this story and we'll keep you updated as the day goes on. Do be sure to continue watching our news coverage, and we will keep you updated on this story. Now, coming back to Kabwe. Kabwe, welcome back. We had lost you there for a moment. What are the next steps for KEBS as we conclude this food safety conversation? What are the next steps? We've lost Kabwe again. Charles, on this food safety conversation, what are the next steps for you on enforcement of the 10 principles of food safety?
Yes, allow me to go back to the COVID discussion. And what we have seen on the side of food of animal origin is that increasingly importers of food of animal origin are demanding that the packages that are used are free from, COVID contamination. In principle, what they are trying to tell us is that the people who handle food at whatever stage should be free from COVID. But I must stress that the World Health Organization has confirmed that COVID-19 is not a foodborne disease, in spite of originating from a food source. It's entirely communicable from person to person and from object to person. And that is why there is that concern with the packaging, because most of the food of animal origin is put under cold storage, and viruses love cold storage. And so when the packaging is contaminated, the virus is likely to be alive there for many days. And we've seen reports from international news talking about the virus coming from one country to the other just through food packaging. So that is something that we need to be alive to. And again, it goes back to the food business operator to ensure that the people handling food are healthy, and now the health matters increase. They must also be free from COVID-19. Again, to add my voice to the consumer conversation, we have a gap when it comes to the strength of the consumer organizations in the food sector. We don't have very strong consumer organizations, despite the fact that safe food is a right, even in the Constitution under Article 43. Kenyans have a right to food of acceptable quality, and that also includes safety. So there's need to strengthen these consumer organizations so that they can create awareness among consumers, who then must demand safe food. Otherwise, at the moment, the consumers only rely on sight and smell to judge if food is safe. And of course, we've also seen that the Kenyan consumers got a very high level of tolerance when it comes to food safety. So people will eat food, they diarrhea, they fall sick. They hardly report. They'll go to the chemist and buy some medicines, or in the rural areas, they take some herbal concoctions, they control the diarrhea, and they think they're okay. The alarm is mostly raised when people have died. We see it in the animal side. For example, when people have been exposed to some anthrax, they have died, then we see an alarm. So the consumers need to come up and really complain and be on top of things, because all this conversation ends up at the table. And the interaction with food is quite frequent, at least 3 times a day for most of us. Now, coming to your question on the next steps with the 10 principles. The 10 principles, as we have said, are meant to make us approach control of food in a uniform manner. The players being many. And so what we are going to do is to take these principles to where they belong, to the inspectors, because inspection, as we have said, is the king when it comes to control of food safety. And so, as we indicated earlier, we have gone to the counties where inspectors do their work, and already we have communicated these principles to inspectors in at least 12 counties, and we are going to outscale this to the rest of the counties. We want all inspectors to be aware of these principles because it is our belief that if these principles are used, then as controllers of food safety, we shall be doing a better job. We shall be more organized. Our actions will be more synchronized. And in that manner, we are likely to achieve better results. Because what we've seen in control of food safety today is that we have a lot of overlaps. In some cases, we have conflicts. We have conflicting results, as we alluded to earlier in the discussion. And there are certain gaps. Certain types of food are not just inspected at all. There is no control. So the principles really are going to improve the food safety control regime in the country. And we want the food business operators to be aware of these principles, because all the players in the food safety sector, the regulators, will be playing by these principles. And that uniformity is important if we are going to achieve the results that we desire. So is a beginning. We do not expect that the principles shall be applied next week. We'll continue singing this song slowly by slowly. It will get to our inspectors. In some cases, we'll need to review some of our laws so that they comply with these principles. We shall also continue sensitizing the food business operators and the consumers and the public at large to and this conversation that we are having with you is very important in this regard. It's just one way of reaching our target audience, the inspectors and the food business operators and the consumers.
Thank you, Dr. Chodo. We have about 3 minutes to go to conclude this conversation. I'd like to start with Kabue from KEBS. In about a minute, what does the future look like for you in terms of food safety enforcement? In a minute.
Thank you. With the knowledge already shared about the responsibility of my inspectors, what they are supposed to look at, and also the responsibility by the FBOs. To me, I'm finding there is with this collaboration where the FBOs knows what to do, the inspector knows what to do, then we are going to expect that our foods outside there is going to be more safe, and we have more confidence in the commodity that we are taking. And above all, we are going to increase the markets, even in the regional market, EAC, and even other international markets, because when our food is safe, it is able to access the market, and then people have confidence in it, and then there is greater return to the country. So that's what we are seeing, and a lot of collaboration is going to happen, a lot of training and awareness necessary to be done, so that the consumer outside there knows what to look for, and the manufacturers knows what is their responsibility in terms of safe and quality food.
Thank you, John. Henning, what would you like us to take away from this conversation? Tell us in a minute.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy for John's comment, because that will also relate to my last comment here, because KEBS is completely right that if Kenya produce more safe food and has a system, a control system that actually works, it will attract foreign investments. It will also improve export of Kenyan food-related products. But I think especially foreign technologies, companies that want to invest in Kenya has been reluctant to do so because the food control was not really in place, and very many food production companies, international ones, they rely on a very high level of food safety with a very positive goal for Kenya to move into higher growth in food and food-related products based on better food safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Henning. Sarah, your concluding remarks in a minute?
Okay, I would like to say that the inspectors, my organization is busy posting inspectors, and we are training them and also dispatching them even at the border points, so that even what is coming in, we have some control. But the main responsibility now lies with every player in each niche of the food chain to play their role responsibly, so that you pass safe food to the next person, so that by the time it reaches at the table, it is still safe. So there will be a lot of the need to have a lot of advocacy.
Yes.
On harmonizing the controls, and also the people in the field, especially the farmers and the informal sector, to also take up their role and be responsible enough to provide safe food to the consumers.
Thank you, Sarah. Finally, Brenda, from the Ministry of Health, what do you want us to remember?
I want you to remember one thing, all of us, we are all consumers. Food safety is everyone's business. It's not about the government alone. It's not about the food business operator alone. It cuts across, whether you're a FBO, a producer, distributor, retailer, wholesaler, consumer. It's our business, all of us, to be able to work together and make sure that whatever we are consuming is safe for us. And as alluded earlier, when we have safe food, we're able to do quite a lot, not just within our country, but even across the borders. And the other thing is I'd like us to look out, especially now that I have this opportunity. We'll be putting the Food Safety Control Coordination Bill in the newspaper. I know Nation newspaper is one of the papers where we are going to put it. Would expect to get more comments and feedback from everybody, and we are open to receive this information up to some point, but this will come in due course. And last but not least, is just to thank you for hosting us.
Great. Thank you very much for making time, all of you ladies and gentlemen, to have this conversation with us. We had Henning Nygaard from the Royal Danish Embassy, and John Kabue from KEBS, Sarah Ndegwa from AFA, Brenda Obura from the Ministry of Health, and Dr. Charles Ochodo from the Department of Veterinary Services, tackling this conversation of food safety. The conversation does not end here. It continues online. You can still tweet me at Zain Wandati, and you can still continue having this discussion. Apologies, I wasn't able to read everybody's comment, but there were some people who wished to have been invited to be part of this conversation to talk about the technology side of food safety as we move this conversation forward. But as we conclude, again, I'd like to remind you of the breaking news today. Self-confessed child serial killer Masten Wanjala has been killed. He broke out of police custody 2 days ago under unclear circumstances, and police were still trying to rearrest him up until the moment of his death. And Bungoma Assistant County Commissioner Cornelius Nyaribai has confirmed that Masten Wanjala was killed by a mob in his home county of Bungoma. We're still continuing to follow that story, and we will update you as it breaks. And remember also, Tirop's suspected killer, her husband, has also been arrested in Mombasa County. Those are two stories that we are following, and we'll update you in our subsequent bulletins. That's it for Your World today. My name is Zana Bondati. Continue watching NTV.